Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Commissioners work session on Tuesday, June 13th. We have been in other sessions all day and now we are starting our work session. And we are beginning with Suzanne talking about temporary seating expansion.
Thanks, Francie. So in 2020, in the midst of COVID, you all adopted an ordinance allowing restaurants to open, to provide additional seating, expanded seating, to provide safe space for people to utilize restaurants. It was set up as people could come in through an administrative review process to get approval to then take advantage of that ordinance. And several properties have utilized that over time. A couple of the restaurants on the mountains, the Sun Deck utilized it, Merry-Go-Round, I think anyway, various restaurants have used it. Woody Creek Tavern and then Bayou. We came to you back in 2022 to say, you know, we're 2 years out. Do you still want this ordinance to remain in effect? And in that time, you all said yes. You know, we still had, you know, the ski company going. We're still concerned about, you know, COVID and spread, and we'd like to be able to continue to have tents. You know, that this has been helpful to us. So at that time, you all agreed to keep the ordinance in effect. A year later, we're back to talk about it again. The difference now is that the federal public health emergency declaration has ended as of May 11th, 2023. So just checking back in to see if you think this is something that is appropriate to remain in effect, or if you think it's appropriate at this time to repeal this opportunity for restaurants to come in for a temporary expansion for seating. To just get it current. For 22, 23, the merry-go-round did have the tent up. They have now removed the tent. They will no longer be using the tent outside the restaurant, so they have no need for this. The Woody Creek Tavern was allowed to utilize some expanded seating through the end of last year. I actually happened to be there last week, and those areas are not being used for permanent seat, you know, restaurant seating. They're kind of back to being waiting, you know, a waiting area if you're waiting for a table. So they're not currently taking advantage of this ordinance for that purpose. So the only entity we have at this time that is the Bayou Retreat. And they set up a tent to use, you know, for expanded seating, has been used for various activities. That was approved to be used through September 30th of 2022. It is still up, and I know they are very interested in continuing to utilize that. I have been in touch with Ruben, and Michaela was going to look and see if he's joined us. Or, okay, somebody from his group is here. But just on that one specifically, you know, we've had conversations with them in the past, and in order to have additional square footage out there, is a land use process they would have to go through to expand, you know, the facilities, provide additional opportunities. They've been able to kind of utilize this temporary provision over this time period, but that's not a, you know, sort of a permanent way to address their needs for the future moving forward with their operations. So we had a similar conversation with the tavern, I think last year, you know, where they, you know, we said they can go through a process to create more seating outdoors for the restaurant, but that's a separate land use process, so separate from this temporary ordinance. So
that's a good question. Just regarding the tavern, they don't anticipate. I'm just kind of surprised they wouldn't have come in and.
So I reached out to their representative who I, you know, worked with last year, and at the time, you know, we talked through. They came in, they pre-apped to go through the you know, the more detailed process for that seating. We finished the pre-app. They never came back in to submit the application. I did reach out and didn't hear back about what their plans are. I mean, they could still come in and ask for that, right. But at this point, it appears, you know, they're not needing that, you know, taking advantage of the ordinance that's in effect today.
And that application costs money, but the special use does not?
These temporary administrative ones that we've granted under Ordinance 2720, we have not charged for those. The full special review amend your land use approvals yes, require a fee and, a bigger process.
Like, what kind of money? Like 30,000, 5,000?
There'd be an application fee to us. There'd be, fees for them to have the people help them prepare applications. I don't
You haven't worked through
know off
that.
the top of my head.
Yeah.
But we have fees for each application type. We determine that when we do
I'm
the
just
pre-app.
wondering whether those fees would be prohibitive and, restaurants tend to operate on the margin, so I'm just wondering if,
Again, for the Woody Creek Tavern specifically, I don't know if they intend to come back through that process or not at this point, or, if what they have, is working for them. But I wasn't able to get an answer back on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Patty.
The biggest hit is generally you have an employee mitigation when you're increasing your square footage and you need more employees. So there would be there's a formula in which that is determined. Is that correct?
If it's, right, if there's square footage, right, we're looking at, right, because you're creating more square footage, does that increase your number of employees or not?
And there's a
So
fee for
there's
that, a mitigation
various
fee.
considerations.
Yeah. I have a few things. I think I don't have a problem rescinding this ordinance because we enacted it during COVID. As far as Bayou? Yeah, they haven't continued to use that tent from September of 2022. Do we know if there have been any use?
I know the tent's still up, and I think, they're online. I assume so, yes.
Okay,
It
that's a
is
question I
continuing to be
have for
used.
Ruben, but also, I don't have a problem with them coming in. We just need to give them a time frame, I think, when they need to submit an application, and we'll review it on its own merit to see if they can justify the continued use of the tent, and if there's employee mitigation, the same standards we'd use for anybody else, and I would welcome them to do that.
You mean a full application, not the emergency?
The emergency one would be gone. They'd have to come in through the regular process because they want to use it in perpetuity. They don't want it just for a certain period of time. Is my
But I guess,
understanding.
absent the ordinance, the ordinance is what allows them to have the tent up today.
Yeah, but we no longer have an emergency situation anymore.
Right. But so the question would be, does the tent need to come down until they go through the process?
As long as they
and get
don't use it,
approval?
I don't think they need to take it down. As long as they don't use it. If they use it,
I think probably, I invited them to join the
Yeah, I
meeting.
think
and
that's
it's
a
obviously
question
for you
for-
all to
for
decide,
Ruben.
but they can probably
Yeah.
explain better the effect
Steve?
of that.
The emergency declaration might be over, but the pandemic is not over. The most recent person I have heard was 2 days ago here in Aspen having COVID. And I would just leave it be for another year maybe, just in case. I mean, this thing could all come back on us really quickly, and rather than then have to reinstitute the same kind of ordinance, I'm okay with just leaving it in place for now, even if nobody is using it, just so it's on the books, and we could just immediately, if a restaurant wanted to use that space again because of a resurgence of the, incidences of COVID, that we could do it quickly without a whole lot of, without any work on our part.
yeah,
with it.
and I understand that, but the reason we created this ordinance was because of the social distancing required through public health and through the emergency declaration of the pandemic. And so that was to allow them to still have X amount of same customers, but they needed more square footage in order to accommodate that number. So that's why we enacted it. Now, they don't have to do that, so they can have the same number of customers in their old square footage, and now we're giving them the advantage of having extended square footage when there's no social distancing required anymore. So that's the difference for me, and if they want to come in and expand their square footage, I welcome them to do so.
Anybody else?
I just would like, if they have anything to say.
Yeah, I
You
hear
wanna-
from Ruben.
Yeah, guys, do you want to talk to us?
Hi, Ruben. You can't.
Can you talk?
We can't hear them yet.
We're not hearing anything there.
we can't do a day without a techno.
Well, I'll speak for just a second while we're waiting for you guys. I can see both points of view. I certainly understand that we probably don't have an emergency anymore in order to perpetrate this ordinance. But on the other hand, why would we object? I mean, just because it's not the standard procedure for increasing your seating? And the idea was not to increase the seating, but to keep the same seating? Is that?
Employee
is that true?
generation is my concern.
It's
They're
what?
Employee generation. They're generating more employees without having to go through any process to mitigate.
I just think what's fair in the code, how we would treat.
Can you guys try to speak now?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
There you go.
Okay.
Great.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you so much for having us. Yeah, ever since seeing this BOCC work session around this time last year, we have reached out to Suzanne. I don't know exactly when it was, but knowing that clause was going to sunlight, to very much come to you. So this is kind of the beginning of that. And we know that the Community Development Board, like yourselves, have been busy. We are using the tent. We use it often. We have used it for expanded seating, certainly. And it has not expanded the amount of guests that we have on site, but it is essential to our business. So we are using it. It is not, to put it up, we have to get a tent that works with the pound per square footage snow loading that works at our elevation of 8,300 feet. So it's not any old seasonal tent. It's a $20,000 operation to put it down and take it back up. We would very much appreciate to be able to continue on. I agree that COVID could come back, and it is just a part of our business now, and we would need to have some very different conversations if it wasn't. And we would love to work with Suzanne and put in the proposal for that. And maybe it'll be the time for some of the other upgrades that we want to see here on this property and for this community up here now that we've been here for a couple of years. But the tent itself is essential. So if just focusing on that works with the Community Development Board and isn't too cost prohibitive, that'd be great. I can't say I totally understand the stipulations around like employee mitigation. We have a crew up here that rents other places nearby, and then we have some people living on site and have all of our employees working up here and not driving up and down the valley. And we've got a great crew, and it's working incredibly well. We have an awesome summer in front of us and have survived the last 2.5 years after starting in the middle of COVID. And we're still here, and yeah, the tent is an essential part of our business.
Thank you, Ruben.
You know, I understand that, Ruben, and I think it's great, and I'm not asking you to take down the tent unless you choose and don't come through a process, but the fact that you're using it now technically is a violation, so we have to see how we can remedy that in an effort to be fair across the board with other people who are using a facility outside of the parameters, such as your ability to use it expired in September 2022. Is that correct?
Well,
So we can work on that, but we need to at least have an application in process to see how we can remedy it so you can continue to use it in the future. Because I totally agree that it's something that your business needs, and we just have to make sure we're acting to you as we act to others.
that sounds great, Patty. And it was our understanding in watching the video from your last meeting, you said kind of the same thing, like, hey, we're not going to make the decision on this. We're not rescinding this emergency, whatever it's called. We're going to let this kind of sunlight and come back to it next year. At that point, I did reach out and say, what do we need to do to talk about a more permanent thing? So I know that we are at a violation because it ended in September, but it was unclear. But basically, we started reaching out before then to say, like, hey, we want to do the next steps. So we haven't been lackadaisical or trying to be in violation.
Great. Thanks, Ruben.
Well, I agree. I don't want you to take the tent down, that's for sure. That seems ridiculous. It does seem like you should catch up, though, so if you put your application in with Suzanne, call Suzanne, figure out exactly what to do, put that application in, then I would be okay with your continuing to use the tent in the interim. That would be my position. How do others feel?
I'm fine with that. Suzanne, what would be a reasonable timeline for a deadline for them to submit?
We have to figure out what it is they need to submit, and the brief conversation I had with Ruben is for them to think through, I think they're looking at all of the things they'd like to do, and are they prepared to come through the process, sort of a bigger master plan, I guess, for the property for the future, or, are they not quite there yet? So would they do an application sort of for, in the interim, we know we need this, or, and maybe a few things. So, we still have to have those conversations. Then they have to, put together an application, bring it in. It has to go through our process. So again, we're looking at somewhat of an extended time frame. If it's not going to happen before the end of the year. Again, so from that perspective, I think if we're okaying the continued use of the tent, really the only way to do that is through the ordinance, remaining in effect, or putting a sunset on this ordinance, through the end of this year or something along those lines. Again, Steve, maybe you don't want to even sunset it, so it could remain in effect. You could sunset it, or just, have it be rescinded. But right, the time frame to actually get Ruben and his folks into a process and then through a process is going to, take a while.
And is there something else that other people do to set up a tent seasonally or get approval for like a seasonal tent?
Again, this is under basically a temporary use to have it up for an extended period of time. If you're having a special event and you put a tent up for a weekend and then it comes down, right, that's, a tent permit to do something like that. But, to have something up, this is more of looking at this as a permanent facility.
Right, sure. Okay. I wasn't sure if we had a process for like a summer seasonal tent or a winter seasonal tent or something like that that was separate from this. Yeah. Okay.
I could go with extending it to the end of the year, and have them work on it, but, the fact they've been operating technically in violation of the extension from September 2022. I know they've got bookings for the summer, and we don't want them to have to cancel those, because I think it's critical to the operation. So I could go there as long as they're proceeding with the process, because I think 6 months gets us a better idea of what they might want to do, and we can move it forward, hopefully.
And so then if the ordinance sunsets at the first of the year, and it's going to be another 6 months for them to get their application through, then they're going to have a period of which they can't use the tent?
Staff could come back to us and let us know what the progress is. If they've not submitted in 6 months, different story. If they're in the process, they can bring it back to us at the end of the year and say we need to extend it another 6 months, or here's the status.
Does it have to be tied to the calendar? Can we extend it till next June 1st so they have a chance to actually complete some applications?
For another year?
Under
It just bothers me they've been operating in violation. And generally, we red tag and shut things down, and I think we're trying to accommodate their operation up there. Anybody else, we'd red tag. And, any other operation because they're in violation. But I think that we understand the different circumstances up there.
Other opinions? Yeah, Greg?
I guess it depends on how long it will take to get the submitted application. It seems to me that you guys should be prepared somewhat already to submit an application, having thought about this since last fall. I would put a deadline of, say, October 1st, to have that application in and in process. And if it's not going to happen, then you take the tent down this fall. Because if it sunsets on January 1st, the tent's going to stay in place probably till the spring anyway. I'm just trying to think what's practical.
So to add some time frame reality to that, I know we've
Okay,
all talked a
that's what I
little
was
bit
gonna
about
ask you
the backlog of applications in our office. Even if they submitted an application, say, by the 1st of September or the 1st of October,
You're not going to see it
they're going to be
till-
on my wait list. Again, Right, it's going to take an extended period of time to get that through a process.
Is there any value in them getting it, having a deadline to get the permit in? Is it
Get the
like
process started?
Get the process started, preliminary review or something, and then you can take however much time you need to process.
Right, I mean, I think, yes, to submit an application, at least trying to come up with, to try and move that step along. Again, in terms of that, right, it's then how much, right, how long does it take for that? I can't say how long it would take to run that
We don't know the
process
depth of
through.
the application.
Right.
Well, I'd like to avoid their having to take the tent down and put it up again. I mean, I can imagine, I haven't seen it, but I can imagine if it's winter worthy, it's a pretty robust tent with probably footers, some cement footers, or at least weights. And so I'd like to come up with something so that they have a path forward without taking the tent down. And even if it includes a fine or something that's considerably less than the cost of taking the tent down. I mean, I don't, for us to find them seems sort of silly, but it seems to me that, according to what Suzanne said, they're gonna run into a period where they've put in their application and nothing has happened on it, and they've got a tent that they can't use, meaning they can't have guests under it ever, or?
Technically, they can't use it without a permit.
So I would recommend that they be, if we're gonna extend it, we extend it to a reasonable amount of time that works for Bayou, and since that's the only entity with which we're dealing, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be catastrophic to the county.
I think the end of this year, they haven't submitted an application and it's not in the process at some level.
But, yeah, but what if they have submitted an application and it hasn't been passed yet?
I'm
then?
saying as long as they have submitted,
Then
so
they can
it's in the
continue.
works,
Oh,
so we
I
know,
see.
yeah.
Okay.
Rather than, we haven't submitted anything yet in 6
I
months.
see.
I need to see some action being taken,
Okay.
so we know that we're on a pathway to address this.
But then how do we give them permission to use the tent if the ordinance has sunsetted?
I'm saying we continue the ordinance until the first of the year, and if we need to extend it again, it can always come back to us, and we can extend it again.
Well, again, I guess there are two things. I mean, the ordinance allows me the authority to grant an administrative decision that approves a time frame for them to utilize that facility. So that's one piece. So as long as the ordinance remains in effect, I can issue that. So then it's a question, to Steve's point, do you want to, repeal the ordinance now at some point in the future, or wait another year and we come back and talk about it, again in a year? I mean, right now it just remains in effect until you take an action otherwise.
So let's not set a date, let's just continue it. Then we don't have to worry about
But
when.
give them a time frame in which to submit an application. Because technically, they're
And that
current-
can be incorporated into
Yeah.
my decision.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ruben?
so again,
Yeah, go ahead, Ruben.
Anything that gives us time, but just so you know, like, we take this seriously, we have been reaching out, and we will jump on it right away. So you will see us submitting specifically for the tent. If while working through it with Suzanne, we see that some of the other things we are considering needs to be in there as well, and maybe it can be a tiered thing. We're happy to very much give you an overall master plan so that you just know what we're thinking about, because it's a collaborative effort and we'll always only ask for permission. And it'll be a multi-year, hopefully multi-generational thing that we're doing up here. But working on the tent is, our top priority, so we will get on it immediately.
Okay.
You got direction?
Is that clear? I'm fine with
Thank
that.
you,
Thanks,
Suzanne.
Ruben, nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay. Oh, we have Connie, upcoming regular meeting items, second quarter budget supplemental requests.
They don't get any smaller here, Connie. They just seem to be growing.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. Okay, good afternoon, Board, and we're here to present second quarter supplemental requests. We have quite a few to get through, and so we're just going to go in order that they're shown in your packet. And we will start with the Healthy Community Fund. We should have a number of people who are joining us online. And Sam, are you presenting the first one on the homeless services expansion, or is that Lindsay?
That would be Lindsay.
Hello, can you hear me today?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. Lindsay Mage, Director of Human Services. Thanks for having me here, and thanks, Connie, for setting us up. This is for the housing navigator positions, correct?
This would be for the homeless services expansion at the Health and Human Services building. Sorry,
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to share my screen here in a second.
Thank you. We have a few of them today. So this budget supplemental is, we discussed this with the board a few weeks ago, just about how we're going to respond to some of the community needs around safety, security around the building and in the neighborhood, to help kind of mitigate some of the things that have come up here. So we are requesting that. Thank you, Connie. That's very helpful. We are requesting to move $180,675 for year one for this 2-year pilot program to move to pass through to go to Recovery Resources to expand their homeless services. Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
After 2 years, we'll come back and we'll have to figure out how to fund it if it's been successful, because it could be a significant amount of money. And I think there's different issues during the school year versus in the summer, when we don't really know what the homeless population will be doing in the summer, versus the issues that came up this past winter. So if we move this forward, I'd like to see an evaluation come back to us in a year to see if we're utilizing 2 full-time FTEs out there, or if there's other opportunities for those personnels and other jobs that they might be able to assist with, other work tasks that they might be able to assist with.
Lindsay, will you be able to make a note to bring that back in a work session in a year's time?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, Patty, that we're doing to work with Recovery Resources on is for them to look for, if this is a successful program, to be looking for over the next 2 years other types of funding mechanisms to be able to cover these costs. We are aware that they were recently they were part of a collaborative grant application for transformation homeless grants, where the region will be awarded $2.7 million for all the efforts that are happening across the region. And we're really hoping that this will help tee up and create that kind of foundational ability to have these types of street outreach workers. That's what we end up calling them. They're like community navigators, but the way that they fund it through HUD and other places is through street outreach. So yes, absolutely, we can come back and provide just an update on what's happening in that landscape.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, or request I should say, I'd like to see this amended for when it comes back for formal adoption, because I believe when we discussed this at work session, there was a component of an education component related to reducing the stigma surrounding homelessness, and I don't see that articulated in the budget request. So I just want to confirm that that is still part of this programming. And if so, I'd like for us to have it.
Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's part of the positions. So it's part of giving the neighborhood access and having them have a direct like phone line to both of these individuals that they'll be hiring, so that they can be communicating really openly about those, about the resources that are being offered for these individuals in the neighborhood and the surrounding area. So it's not written into this budget supplemental, but that is absolutely part of these positions. Yep.
So,
And
It just changes.
that will be
Add a
a
little
part
bit
of
of
the
language.
contract language with Recovery Resources, I imagine, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's coming to us tomorrow.
I can amend it tomorrow too.
okay. Any other questions? Any problems with it? Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next request. So next, again, out of the Healthy Community Fund, there's a request for Healthy Community Fund fund surplus. And this was something that Sam and Lindsay brought to you in a work session not too long ago. So I will pass it over to them.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Connie. So just to summarize our work session discussion, we had realized earlier in this year that there was approximately $420,000 of surplus funds in the Healthy Community Fund. And we reached out to all of the organizations and nonprofits involved in the fund to discuss ways that this money could be best used to support their mission. And what we heard from a lot of organizations, basically the message we heard was that capacity building, as far as staffing, programming, funding, et cetera, would really be the things that could most benefit them. And we brought to the BOCC a number of options we thought could help address this, one of which was a capacity building grant program that would allow organizations to bring on fundraisers, grant writers, development directors for a 2-year period to help increase their revenue and programming, as well as a educational program to help bring in additional training for these organizations over the next 3 years. So we had requested we are requesting to move $300,000 into the grants line for the Healthy Community Fund for 3 capacity building grants, and $40,000 this year into the education program. We'll budget the rest of the $40,000 over the next 2 years in the regular budgeting process, with the purpose of those educational aspects to be bringing in. We're actually doing a training tomorrow to bring in a strategic planning training for nonprofits to help them work through those processes.
I don't have any concerns about this.
I don't either. Anybody else? All righty.
Okay, our next 3 requests are out of the Human Services Fund. And these are 3 grants that were brought to you. You approved the grants in a regular meeting, and this is now appropriating the necessary budget for those grants. And so I will ask Lindsay or Sam to briefly talk about these. If the board needs a
See,
reminder.
you don't have to twist our arm to take money there, Lindsay, but
Yeah, you can make this short and sweet, Lindsay.
Yeah, so as you recall, we did bring this in a regular meeting to you all. We have one grant for $150,000. That's through the Colorado Department of Human Services, Homeless Initiatives Grants. And that's really intended to pay for specific positions called housing navigators. And that's to help build landlord relationships, connect unhoused people to housing opportunities, and really start to build some of those housing opportunities. Not just for Pickens County, we applied on behalf of the 3 counties, on behalf of Eagle, Garfield, and Pickens County. So these 2 positions would be essentially covering the entire region. And we are, this is passed through, we are RFPing these funds right now.
Okay, any concerns there? All good?
Okay, for all 3, or Lindsay?
I'm good with all 3.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
fine
we're
with it.
probably all good with all 3.
Okay.
Save your voice.
That would
Okay.
be me. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And Sam, thank you. Okay, next we have a request from the Public Health Fund, and it's part of their mental health program, the Mental Health Collaborative, with a number of different funding partners. And we should have Jordana or Larissa online.
Hi, Connie and board, can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay, is this any better?
That's
Yeah, we can hear
rather
you now.
loud.
Woke us all up.
Sorry about that. So, not allowing me to start my video, but I will continue to talk here about the budget request before you. The Vital Mental Health Services Program is the work that we do in connection with 4 other partners: Aspen Valley Hospital, City of Aspen, Aspen School District, and the town of Snowmass Village. As a part of this work, we fund 2 positions within the county, as well as a number of contracted services. When we budgeted for the contracted services, we budgeted for what would be spent in 2023. But per state statute, full contract amounts must be budgeted up front. So when we looked at our school-based services, which increased in the number of clinicians that are being offered in the schools, we realized that, or Connie realized that we did not have the full contracts which go through the school year. So those go through August of 2024. And we needed to budget the full amount of the contracts, even if some of that will be spent in 2024. So what is before you today is asking for that to be budgeted upfront in 2023, as well as including $5,000 that we received as a grant from the Rocky Mountain Health Foundation to do this work.
Okay. Comments?
Nope.
Concerns? Alrighty.
Good with it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much,
Thanks.
Jordana. Next, we have 2 requests from the airport, and Dan Bartholomew is online, I believe. Also Diane. I thought I saw.
And I'm their muscle.
Let's bring everybody on.
Dan, and did you want to start with?
No, it's all yours, Greg.
Okay.
All right, Muscle, bring it on.
So thank you, everyone, for taking us on right now. We've identified something that we've been doing employment-wise at the airport that is what we consider to be a waste of county and airport resources, and we'd like to try and fix that right now by changing 2 of our last 2 remaining seasonal full-time positions to full-time. We have experienced a lot of issues since we did the original change of moving the 6 other seasonal employees to full-time. When it comes to these 2 seasonal positions, we are having issues hiring. We're putting a lot of county resources as far as IT, human resource, risk, and airport resources into training people that have abandoned their job within the first 4 months of being there. So we're left short-staffed. People are experiencing some burnout from having to pick up shifts. We don't have people to cover shifts during sick time, during time that people are trying to care for loved ones or just take some time off. We have no way of meeting our minimum standards for safe and efficient operations with these 2 existing seasonal positions that just walk away from the job mid-season on us. We also have a bit of a budget liability. We have 9,000 hours of PTO accrued within the airport, about $375,000 worth of PTO.
What does that mean?
About $375,000.
PTO, what does that mean?
Paid time off.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Because of our accruals, no one's able to take time off because we're always covering the absence of these 2 positions that come in, do training, and then walk out. We're really losing people to the community and people that are offering full-time positions. So we're really hoping to kind of curb that by changing these 2 positions into full-time. Our workload doesn't let off in the off seasons. It's continually growing, whether it be an aging terminal, a new terminal that's hopefully in the works, the care of the grounds, the contracts that we've cut to get the original 6 people approved, which is landscaping, irrigation, runway striping, all of these things. We don't have a dead season. We have an imbalance in our employment or our staff just because we have 2 shifts that are short people all summer long when we don't have the seasonals. But it's really, we have 2 shifts that are short all the time because we bring people in and they leave on us for full-time employment. So we'd like to kind of change that model. It was something that worked in following 2008 when there was tons of construction workers that were out there, and 9 months working at the airport seemed like a great thing for them because construction had slowed down, and we all know that construction doesn't slow down. It's a year-round opportunity, so we're not attracting people with the skill sets we need. We do a good job of training people, but we just can't keep them. And that's tough, and it's proved tough for the last several years, so we're hoping to change that up as delicate of a situation as adding FTERs. We definitely need these positions.
What's the cost of the 2 positions? What's the cost of the change?
There's no budgetary change for this year, implications for this year. We would have to plan for it for 2024, but there's not a massive increase. I think our budget is
Just coming from a different source?
Just a different line item. The seasonals were already budgeted, so they have plenty of budget to cover the cost of these positions. So it's not a budget impact, it's just an FTE change.
Okay.
Francie? All right, so you know how I feel about FTE.
I do.
So I can support this, but I have a question. It was budgeted for $193,700 for the 2 seasonals, but for the 2 FTEs, it's $170,600.
Seasonals make a little bit more.
I'm not sure why there's that discrepancy, Patty, and it may have just been a little error in the budgeting for the seasonals.
And
seasonals do earn a higher dollar amount per hour
they don't get the
because of
benefits.
the lack of benefits.
And the other question is, bringing it back in 2024 budget, any idea what that budgetary impact will be for the full year? Is it?
It's
It'll still be around 170,600?
yes, it is.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
budgetary-wise and ongoing within their 5-year plan, I don't see this having any impact.
Well, I think we need to find a way to back up current staff so they can have time that they need and not be burned out and keep us at our safety standards. So, yeah, I don't have a problem supporting FTEs for this position.
I support it. Okay, you're all good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You knew I had to ask that, didn't you?
You're welcome, Matt.
Hopefully they won't have to drive from Parachute or anything.
Okay, next, Carrie should be on the line, I believe. This is for the airport, but it has to do with servers that IT is looking after. Carrie, are you there?
Oh, yeah, for a second there. There she is.
Hello there, everybody. Yep, this one should be fairly quick and easy. It's pretty straightforward. Long story short, we had budgeted this past budget season for about $40,000 for server replacement. But as I'm sure everyone knows, things just simply cost more. And what we also found was we're trying to create more redundancy at the airport, just in the sense of if something were to fail, something else is right there to be that backup and make sure everything keeps operations running smoothly. And there are a couple of software requests that have come through, which have essentially required more power, if you will. So when we looked at the specs and quoted this out in conjunction with ProVelocity, they came back with, we're going to need a little bit more money than that $40,000 in order to upgrade our servers, make them last for years to come, and provide us that power and safety net that we're looking for. So in this request, you'll find that we are seeking an additional $40,000 for these servers.
Well, this looks like a slam dunk.
Well, I have a question. We're doubling. We're not just asking for a fee increase. We're doubling the amount that was budgeted. I know the cost of supplies and equipment is going up, but I have a concern that it's double. I understand the need for it, but I just needed to voice that concern.
Yeah, no, and I totally appreciate that, Patty. And I think that the biggest reason why you're seeing it doubling is previously we hadn't taken into consideration some of the software that we had been looking at. One is an artificial intelligence software, and that would hook into the camera system out at the airport and essentially allow the airport to be able to easily assess, oh, is somebody loitering? Is somebody doing this? And that takes a lot of power on the back end, if you will, just for simplicity's sake, in order for that software to run. So as something that we may look into in the near future, we wanted to make sure that our equipment was prepared to handle such requests, whether that be sooner or later. So that's why you're seeing that double amount, if you will.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Everybody okay with this one?
Yeah, just if I could, I just want to say, it sounds as if, maybe things are moving faster than we all anticipate, especially regarding, the opportunities with AI and computer systems, but it'd be nice to be able to look a little bit farther ahead. It just feels like we're trying to play catch up and nobody anticipated this, so it does make me nervous. And I'll express the same concern Patty had. I don't know how old the servers were that we're replacing that are out of date already. It'd be nice to know that. Really, how long does it take to become outdated these days, and what do we anticipate changing as the next generation of software comes online, and is it something we really need, or is it something that's convenient? I'm a little concerned about that.
Sure, Greg. Thanks for those questions, and I super appreciate them. So the biggest thing, and let me answer that first question, and that's end of life. So we have reached end of life for our servers. We've already replaced the vast majority across the county. These are specific to badging, access control, some of the big hitters out at the airport, and they were on deck just as far as our replacement schedule to be replaced in this year. So we had budgeted the $30,000. Clearly, we under budgeted for what we're trying to accomplish within this year, and then really doing our due diligence, and that's why we believe that the $80,000 will be plenty, so that we have that longevity going into the future. So servers last about 8 years, but technology is ever changing, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that becoming less in the years to come. And then just as far as the software component, is it a must-have? No. Is it a nicety and something that will, potentially protect us long-term and keeping us up with current technology and infrastructure? Yes. So that's why really this additional request for the money here is not just for the sake of potentially implementing that software sooner than later, but if anything else were to come, we have the additional room in order to implement that without coming back to the board asking for additional monies.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're good to go.
Okay. Well, thank you,
Okay,
Carrie.
thank you.
Just if I could add last thing, Carrie, just that going forward, it just seems like I don't know enough about this to even understand quite where it's going to go next. So maybe just, I don't know, it seems like we could get a little bit more of a heads up on where you think this is going. So the next time this happens, we'll actually be online, and I feel like I could be better prepared to understand what's actually happening and where it's going, just so it makes me more comfortable, because of course we can anticipate the budget doubling again sooner than we think.
Yeah, Greg, happy to chat anytime. So let's maybe take a few minutes to sit down together and talk through this.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of it as in the packet for the board, not just me.
That's tomorrow.
Well, next time. We're
Next
behind
time,
today.
okay.
We'll have more servers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, thank you.
We're all good for this time. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay. Next, we have the Road and Bridge Fund, and Matt Bergstresser is here to talk about an increased cost for plow trucks.
Hi, Matt.
Howdy, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
We're getting through it.
Matt Bergstresser, the fleet manager. I'm here today to ask for some additional funding for the build of our new road and bridge trucks. For the 2023 budget, we estimated an increase about 12% in raw materials and supplies. Unfortunately, we're seeing 35+% on everything. So our trucks are going to be about $450,000 a piece right now. The chassis themselves have been ordered, and we need the extra money to complete the builds. So that's what we're here for.
Are you gonna have drivers for them?
To be determined.
Yeah, that's my concern, that we're gonna have the trucks and no drivers.
I think we'll have drivers for these.
So I have a question. Well, actually, I have a comment. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better to buy now than wait because we know what the supply is and we know the costs definitely have gone up. But these are just for snowplows. There's not a dump truck in there?
These are dump trucks, yeah. These are tandem axle big dump trucks.
Perfect. My
Yep.
grandson will be out there to see them.
In 18 to 24 months when we get.
It's his favorite. He'll be out there. He'll have
18
his,
to 24 months?
Yep, that's how far we're building out right now.
takes that long
You're
to get all the
kidding.
stuff in.
Nope.
She was hoping for
We're paying
September.
for them now, and they're not gonna arrive for 2 years?
We're not paying for them yet, but we're signing contracts for them. So we're obligated to pay, so we'll carry the funds forward, I would assume, for.
And we have moved up our purchase on a number of vehicles
Yeah.
because of
supply and
the
demand.
chip shortages and all kinds of things that have restricted supply chains.
Holy mackerel. Well, you should have drivers by then.
Yeah.
I hope so.
By the time my grandson can drive, so
We'll even have some
Aloysius and
affordable housing
Alistair
for them
driving
by then,
trucks.
maybe.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
let's work in tandem with that one.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
All right, it's all good, I think.
When you say build out, you're putting in the reservation for the truck for at the specification that you want, and then the factory or the fab shop, wherever they are, they're gonna build the truck.
Correct, the
It's not like
fabrication.
you're getting a chassis and the parts and you have to do it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, just
Actually,
double.
chassis themselves have already been ordered. Those are probably about 12 to 16 months out. And then the actual build of the truck itself is 18 to 24
And they're
months.
really rushing to get it done, as you can tell.
Yeah. And we've been actually working on this since 2022.
Well, I don't mean you, I mean
No, but
the other guys.
in general, yeah, so this has been ongoing.
Guys were paying.
Yeah, guys that are getting $900,000
Yeah.
But we get 2 trucks.
in 2 years.
Yeah, maybe sooner. Hoping for the 18 months.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Wow, that's shocking.
Okay.
Okay, do we have Brian here today, or you're
No,
doing it for him? He's in
I believe Brian
Alabama
is
or
still
somewhere.
out, and so can cover
Down in
these.
Alabama.
Next, we have a request from the Twining Flats Road General Improvement District. And this is a small district that has a small property tax for their district to pay for snow plowing and road maintenance. And with the amount of snow that we had this last winter, they have burned through and then some their snow plowing budget and need to have an increase on the snow plowing budget, considering also that there will still be a couple months at the end of the year for snow plowing. And in addition to the snow plowing, they would like to appropriate $3,000 for some road base, some gravel work on their roads this summer. So it's a
That
total
they're gonna do, or Public Works is gonna do?
that they will be doing.
They maintain their own road.
Where's
So
Twining
it's a-
Flats, remind me?
It's just past Smith Hill Road if you're driving down Valley.
Oh, that's right, right,
Yeah,
right, right.
there's
I
a
know
bus
that
stop
road.
there.
Yes, that road,
It's pretty cool down there, actually. Especially if you know Maude Twining.
Okay, so basically, they have their own funds for doing this, but they ran out.
They have the funds, they just ran out of the budget appropriation. And so we're increasing the budget appropriation out of their own funds.
Just this one time, or?
That's right.
Okay. So we control their funds, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any problem with that. Anybody else?
Nope.
All right.
The next request is actually something that was simply missed in the,
Actually,
Yeah,
sorry.
sure.
Related but unrelated, since it's in front of us, do we control their mill levy? Will this come up for like mill levy adjustment? I know
it
it's a
is
small
a,
budget, but
it
I'm
is a
just
mill levy
curious.
that you approve.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They have a board that I think would make a recommendation
Recommendation.
on what they think they need, but it does come to you for approval.
And same with Redstone
Redstone Ranch.
Acres, what, Ranch Acres, Redstone Ranch Acres. So they'll make a decision on whether they want to have the full increase in their property taxes or not, or,
Depends on if they're depressed.
All county funds that receive property taxes as well as dependent special districts, you set the mill levy for.
dependent as compared to independent districts.
Correct.
Okay,
Independent
that's-
districts, you do
okay.
not.
Yeah, okay,
Dependent
great.
districts, you
Like
do.
OST. and-
So OST is a fund of the county, but for example, library, I guess, would fall in there. Ambulance district is a dependent district that you would set the mill levy
Okay,
for.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay. The request for the Maroon Bells Comprehensive Recreation Management Plan is nothing new. It's something that the board already approved. It was already in the budget. It just was missed in the budget carry forwards. So we're simply carrying forward the funds. It's a 2-year project and carrying forward what should have been included in the carry forward resolution.
Great, let's just move it forward then.
Okay. Next, we have the sheriff's office, if this didn't jump ahead too much.
Excuse me. And there's Alex, right on time.
He's watching us. That spyware.
I'm assuming I'm not. Hi, Connie.
Hi.
I just ate a mint, I'm sorry. Do you want to start us off, or?
No. So the sheriff's department has already received and is included in their budget a $20,000 matching grant from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So that makes a total of $40,000 that's available to be spent for things that will mitigate that bear-person contact. And now there is some additional funding that's available. So this is adjusting the budget to be able to actually spend that funding that is available through Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Correct.
So this is accepting funds.
It's accepting funds. We originally thought we would be able to do this in a different way. That CPW would purchase the items as part of their grant program, but that turned out not to be the case. So they are giving us the funds and asking you to accept the $30,000 to increase our total funding to $50,000, with which we'll use to purchase additional trash cans for Lazy Glen specifically, which is a high bear trash violation area for us, and also to equip our deputies with additional tools and equipment to address and deal with these bear calls that we go on pretty much through all summer long.
So what determines which community gets free trash, bear-proof trash from the county and which doesn't?
So I can actually ask Emily, you want to come up and help? Emily Casebeer is our community response officer. She's been involved in this
Just
program.
spent quite a bit on a bear-proof trash container.
What it really comes down to
areas.
is the frequency of the violations that we respond to, the number of calls that we go to.
You mean violations on the part of the bear or on the trash containers?
I think it's probably a mix of both.
Both.
For sure.
Yeah, so coming into this, I'm still fairly new, but when I started, I saw overwhelmingly a high number of incidents happening in Lazy Glen in specific, and a need from the community for support more than any other community I'd seen throughout the county. So combined with the bear activity and combined with just what appears to be a need from the community there, is how we zeroed in on Lazy Glen.
And we hope that this is an annual grant through the Colorado Parks and Wildlife that will allow us to benefit other parts of the community of Bacon County.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So, you mean when the bears come and tip over our trash and stuff, I don't call you guys, am I supposed to?
No, oftentimes what happens is neighbors will call about other trash they see overflowing. You're required to have your lid closed and locked, and it's supposed to be a bear-proof container, and that's all codified in the county code. we'll get people that call and say that a trash can has been dumped over and trash is all over the road.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's
trash
concerned
violations mostly.
citizens.
Yeah,
It's not just bear encounters, it's trash violation.
It's trash violation under the wildlife protection ordinance.
Right.
And it just so happens that bears are the most magnificent, noticeable creature that gets into the trash, but also the raccoons are getting into it, the magpies are getting into it just as much as the bears are. And I think it happens too in Lazy Glen because it's so high density, so it's noticeable. You know, not just one neighbor's affected when the trash gets torn apart, it's all
Everybody.
10 who are
Right.
in that area.
Right.
So.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
How do the bears get to Lazy Glen?
I think they're coming off both hillsides, so they're coming down the hillside and across the river.
So they cross
and
the
there's-
pedestrian bridge that we put in
There's
at
an
Open Space?
underpass, so they're
And the
coming down the
underpass.
underpass.
Are they? That's interesting.
Would
Yeah.
be my guess.
So it's nice to know there's some wildlife using the underpass and the pedestrian bridge we put in for open space. Either that or they're swimming across the river.
Yeah,
Swimming right now.
it says that originally the match, they were gonna do a match for 20,000, and they upped it to 30, but we're still in for 20, is that how that works?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and
There
then
was some-
next year, what do you anticipate happening next year?
Next year, well, initially they offered 20 because we came to you guys in the fall and you said you could match 20. So they said, great, we'll shoot for 20. And then they didn't have other municipalities that could match as much, so they had some extra funds. So I don't know what went into their decision-making to send us more money. Maybe it's the incident rate, I'm not sure.
Meteor
But-
bears.
It's unknown at this point, I think, what their plan is for
Right.
next year.
So
Well,
anyway,
and the-
next year we'll,
For next year, the application process for next year's grant with the state, because it's a state grant, has already passed. So then it'd be so not 2024, but 2025, and it's through the state. I think we didn't realize that the grant was through the state and we could just go directly with the state. We thought CPW had to be the middle person, because they're the ones that brought it to us and pitched it to us. And now
On behalf of Lazy Glen?
No, on behalf of the state of Colorado.
on behalf of
Okay.
the state, yeah. So now we, being the sheriff's office, and I think APD's having a similar realization, and so is Snowmass, we now realize that we can apply for that grant just directly through the state and cut out the middle person of CPW for the future.
With their
Yep,
support.
go ahead.
I have two questions. What's the next highest incidence area in the county? And then do we have an ordinance preventing bird feeders? Somebody asked me that.
We do have bird seeders.
It's part of the bear
Feeders.
ordinance.
Yeah, we do.
I was gonna say not that I've been able
At
to
least it
find.
is in the city. You have to, with the
Yeah, maybe-
hummingbird
Yeah, I
feeders, you
wasn't
have
sure
to
if in
move
the
them in
county. I don't know if
bird
the
seed,
county
they have
has
to be
one.
out of
Don't
reach, so you have to have them like on a pulley that you can raise them up so the bears don't get them.
Not
I
that
don't
I'm-
think
not
the
that I'm
county
aware of.
has any.
I'm not
I
sure.
thought it was in the
And-
standard bear ordinance.
I haven't seen it yet in the county.
And off the top of my head, I could probably get you actual data. Excuse me, but it's probably Aspen Village.
Yeah.
It's those high
That makes
density
sense. Yeah,
areas.
that one's right over from the dump. They go
Yep.
forward of the dump. And
Yeah, I
I
think
like
it's
the trail.
partly because they're neighboring the dump, but also because it's high density also.
Yeah.
And there aren't that many communities left that have curbside pickup in our area. So then the third most likely would be Mountain Valley, because it's fairly high density, and they have curbside pickup
right.
Right.
still.
So the bears know to come on Tuesday morning or whenever.
And they do know that.
Yeah.
They do know that, yeah.
Yeah, and in areas like Lazy Glen and Aspen Village, they don't have, a lot of residents don't have space to have a shed or a garage to bring their trash cans indoors. So they sit out in front of their homes. They're meeting code by having a locked wildlife resistant container, but they don't have any sort of structure to put that in.
Right.
So by getting these really fancy trash cans, I'm hoping to at least help this neighborhood who doesn't quite have the infrastructure that's working right now.
So are citizens fined if they're in trash violations?
They can be.
Or are they just talked to, or both, or?
It's a mix of both.
Yeah, it's a mix of both. They can be fined. I would prefer to start with education.
Right, of course.
And prefer to start with helping to solve a problem instead of just fining
Yeah.
straight away. And a lot of times I'm finding that it's solved through getting over a language barrier or education on the wildlife protection ordinances, that it kind of comes from just not knowing most of the time.
And isn't there a progression? First fine, second fine? And I think the third fine was supposed to be about the same cost as replacing their trash can with the bear proof. So you can either do the job right and buy your own trash can, or we're gonna fine you that money. And we had a fund created.
Well, that's what I'm
We
wondering
do
about,
actually
so-
have
do.
a little
Don't we
bit
still
of
have a
money in the
minimum?
landfill
So the
budget.
fines would go into a fund so we could help people who couldn't afford to buy trash cans.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is this
Yeah.
financially based to a certain extent, or? I'm just wondering why we're allocating all this money to one neighborhood for bear-proof trash cans when there's probably lots of people who would love to have some money to buy a good bear-proof
We
trash
have a
can.
fund.
But they don't have the same bears.
What?
They don't have the bear density. The bear, so they're going after where the sweet spots where the bears are.
Yeah, the incident rate.
Higher places in
And Francie, I
town.
want you to know, when we were discussing this ordinance some years ago, we got an award actually from CPW down in Grand Junction. My suggestion was, like we do with the bears, the third time you're out. And they wouldn't let me put that in the ordinance. Because
I
we
mean,
had
I
people
certainly
who
don't
blatantly
have
violated,
any-
they didn't care.
I don't have anything against Lazy Glen. I'm just thinking about other communities that might need help and sort of how this got prioritized for Lazy Glen.
It truly is about the number of calls that we
Incidents.
get down in Lazy Glen, the high density, and and as I said earlier, we will take additional opportunities in the future to use additional grants from CPW to look at other areas like Aspen Village. We've even talked about trying to help with funding, like to get away from the curbside pickup model and help fund a shelter that can be built.
That was my
a
first
centralized
pitch
shelter.
to Lazy Glen,
So,
was to offer to help finance dumpster sheds for them.
and then
Works at
And
one of
they
the other
turned it down.
They didn't have
So-
room for it?
The
or they
residents
just-
turned it down?
HOA did.
The
and Part of
HOA.
the conversation of how can we help you, and that was not something they were interested in at the moment. One of the other ideas that we had was trying to get into a kind of a public-private partnership with an arborist or a landscaping company to look at figuring out a way to use some of the money to replace fruit-producing trees that are bear attractants. So if you have a piece of property that has a bunch of trees on it, crab apples or whatever you may have. Could we use some of these funds to reduce those attractants to minimize bears coming onto private property? So there's all sorts of ideas and all sorts of different programs. We landed on this one with the highest density and the highest number of incidents.
And the squeakiest wheel.
I wouldn't say necessarily the squeaky
necessarily.
swill. It's not that they sought us out. It's based purely on
responding to data.
number of
Correct.
incidents and number of violations.
Okay. Okay.
And not that, we'll get as many of these new canisters as we can, and if they don't all get dispersed to Lazy Glen, if we have extras, they'll absolutely end up in other areas of the county that have the need as well.
Interesting that they didn't want the shed,
Yeah.
because they'd rather have their trash out in front than in the shed. That's
Means you have to
interesting.
walk down the street with your trash.
Yeah.
That's a little disturbing. I'm just thinking if it comes around next year, I'd love to know what they've been thinking on that, because it doesn't seem sustainable or fair if the money's always going to them because they're not taking the proactive stance of fixing the problem. If this seems like a temporary solution. These things will get worn out. They'll be used,
Yeah,
in a couple
I
of
agree.
years, they'll need to be replaced again. Dumpster sheds can last a decade or two or three.
Yep, I agree. I tried really hard.
Right.
I had a really good
I bet
pitch
you did.
Telling you, got
for
us behind
dumpster
you.
sheds. And it's tricky. In the wildlife protection ordinance, they're recommended for high density areas, not mandated for high density areas. And their answer when they came back to me was that they have a large amount of residents who are elderly and that they have a hard time walking to the dumpsters to get their trash to the dumpsters, especially in the winter when it's icy.
How do they get to the
I countered that it sounded like an excellent opportunity to involve the younger generation in the community to help the older
Mention a sense of
generation.
community, taking care of each other.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so they're not recycling or composting if we're only
They do have
replacing.
recycling.
Mhm.
I haven't. They have one compost bin that I've seen out by their HOA office. Other residents might have them inside, but I haven't seen too many compost
That is a
bins
good bear
outside.
attractant.
Yeah.
So I would like to recommend that before we give them any more money, we require that they use the money to build a shed for their trash, so that we're not doing this every year. And to reduce the danger of having a bear outside their house.
Sure.
We want you to go down
And to
there tell
protect the
them
bears.
That's why I believed in the 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah.
There's jail time too attached. The third time you could send
Oh
the
my
owner
gosh,
of the
really?
property to jail. We had people in the city of Aspen who were blatantly violating over and over again. They just write a check. And I said, then we need to look at stronger enforcement. Would mean the owner, not the property manager, the owner of that property would spend 3 days in jail, but the staff at the jail was not supportive of that suggestion.
They just euthanized after 3 strikes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, you don't have to put up with our silliness anymore. We're gonna okay this, but I would like to see the residents of Lazy Glen take a more permanent solution to this problem.
I would love that as well. This is a.
Maybe it should be tied
How
to
can we
their
help
funding.
address this in the moment?
Now, did we just, so how long do you think this solution will last? How long will this fix last? I mean.
We'll see how durable
Those
they
are
are.
pretty
durable cans.
They're built just like Yeti coolers, so they're rotationally molded plastic, and the lids are as well. And they are like one of the highest scoring from the International Grizzly Bear Conference that happened in I think
pretty
Tahoe.
nice.
So I'm hoping that these hold up better than any of the other cans out there.
You
But
can
yeah,
see, we love talking about bears, just like beavers. It's really
I would
fun.
rather see a more permanent solution, for sure.
The sheds.
I mean, I
were-
think of a place like Redstone, which obviously has tons of bears, you know, and everybody lives up and down that valley, and probably the Frying Pan Valley, you know, and so, okay, so.
Well, if they have any beaver problems down there, definitely come back.
Yeah, then we can talk about beavers.
Or wolves.
Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you, sorry.
Is the next item yours as well?
It is,
I believe
it is.
An
Do you wanna-
FTE.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, and it's very nice to meet you. What was your name again?
Emily.
Emily, nice to meet you.
Thanks, Emily.
Been with us
So
since
the next
almost
item is a request for a full-time employee, an FTE, for the role of school resource officer. We currently have one SRO who's sitting behind me, Cam Daniel, that's employed by the county. And we partner with the Aspen Police Department to provide a second. And after in the wake of the swatting events back in February, and through conversation with various members of the community and also staff at the Aspen School District and internal discussions, we recognized the real need for a third SRO up at the schools. And this third SRO will perform a specific role, not only at the Aspen School District, but also enhancing our presence and our cooperation and collaboration with the Aspen Community School and Aspen Country Day School, excuse me. These positions play tremendous roles in the school environment, not enforcing administrative rules or rules from the school, but really there to foster that relationship early on between law enforcement, which helps us out in the long run, and also to act as informal counselors and also part-time educators as well. They teach street law classes and different kind of classes in the schools as well. Happy to answer any questions about the specific role, or have Cam or the sheriff also speak about the SRO.
Welcome, Michael.
Hello, hello.
Patty?
Oh, yeah, this is a full-time equivalent. Michael had the courtesy to call me ahead. And the reason why I can support this is because of the overlapping use of this position, especially in the summer when school's not in session, to help with special events, with issues, with giving, because they'll be trained just like sheriff's deputies. So they'll be able to be available so our current staff can take vacations, take some time off, and not get burned out. And I think that's critical, just like we said with the airport.
And be available during those 4th of July weekends and those other weekends during the summer.
to be in Redstone enforcing parking.
Awesome. Yeah, Kelly?
Hi, nice to see you all. I am wondering, when we last discussed this, I thought that it was presented that there was additional staff capacity to cover this position. So I was a little surprised to see it in our packet presented this way. So I'm just curious as to what shifted with that, if we've approached the city to help defray the cost of this based on any of their interest in similar safety goals that we all share.
So we currently have open positions already on patrol. So we decided that this would be the best way to dedicate an individual in a position to this school resource officer position. And then in terms of the city, we did not approach the city in terms of defraying costs. The school is wholly within the jurisdiction of the county. They currently help us by providing that additional officer that's fully funded by the city. So that was not part of the original discussion.
Is the school district approached at all? I'm always a little surprised because the school district's budget is like almost as big as this county's for the fewer services that, not to say they don't provide incredibly important services, but I just wonder if there's some absorption there.
Do you want to? I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, part of the conversation we had about approaching the school district is the relationship that you then create between who does the officer work for. Right now, the role of a school resource officer is purely for law enforcement purposes. It's outlined in an MOU with the school district that they don't get involved in school administrative, you're late for class, you're chewing gum when you're not supposed to, whatever those administrative issues are. And when you have the school fund the position, it starts to change that relationship a little bit as to who that officer really does work for. So when the principal comes up and says, or any part of the staff comes up and says, go do this, are they required to do that because of the fact that it's partially funded by the school? That was part of the conversation we had. We felt that it was more appropriate for us to fully fund the position wholly as a Pickens County Sheriff's Office deputy and not enter into that relationship to keep those lines unblurred and very clean.
Very clear. I was a teacher at Carbondale Community School for a long time, and the school resource officer we had there was just loved by the kids. So I think that one of the important things about SROs is the sort of building of a relationship between kids and law enforcement, because they certainly didn't see him as any kind of threat or anything. They just loved him, and they loved it when he came in the classroom.
Yeah, and they should not be seen as a threat or there to, come down on them with the law. They should be a mentor, a guidance counselor, just that guy to go to. And I know Cam and Elise from the S Police Department they're just that.
Yeah, it was great. And he ended up having a disease that made his vision restrict more and more, so he was losing all his peripheral vision, so they had to give him an office job, and he wasn't able to be the SRO anymore. The kids were really sad.
Retinitis pigmentosa.
What?
Retinitis pigmentosa.
Very good, Michael. Retinitis pigmentosa.
So I don't disagree with the importance of this. I guess I do, in as a result of those incidences, we obviously got a lot of feedback. Some of that feedback was as extensive of, we need to build a sheriff's department on the school campus because
with 10 police
we need
officers
to, have ability to defray and all that. And, so not being a person who really has expertise in this at all, just continues to wonder, like, is this the biggest safety need in the community? For a position when we're struggling to fill positions, to cover all the safety needs in our community. I mean, I worry more about getting in an accident driving up and down Highway 82 every day, with my kids in the car.
Right.
So I'm just curious as to
coming up with a plan to help that too.
About that.
It is the largest concentration of human beings in Pickens County on a daily basis, including the summer, with the music school and everything else going on there. Of course, we don't have SROs there during the summer, but during a school year, it is the largest concentration of humans.
That's really interesting.
And I don't want to say we've disregarded or neglected the country day school and community school, but we've focused for years since the inception of the SRO program on the Aspen School District campus, on the 3 or 4, if you include the preschool, And I think what we really learned is that the events of February 22nd, although they were focused on the Aspen Country Day School or on the Aspen School District campus, they really had those peripheral effects on the other schools, and they were kind of left out in the dark a little bit.
Well,
All the way
and
down Valley. All the way down.
all the way
Valley.
down. And I'll go as far as that. I had parents calling me saying, why weren't deputies up at
Country Day.
community?
Community.
And I told them we had information that it's at the Aspen Elementary School. And they said, we're also an elementary school in Aspen.
Yeah.
I said, you're right.
Yeah, CRMS postponed their ski trips that day. I mean, it affected all the kids in the valley.
So Cam's done a great job working since then with Aspen Country Day School and working through a process to do a threat assessment with an outside vendor with the Country Day School and working with the community school to go through their security protocols. But what that does is it takes him away from his duties at the Aspen School District campus. So having this person to float essentially between the two campuses and whatever that looks like, and we'll figure that out, will allow us to enhance that kind of that presence and dedicate some actual resources to those two campuses.
Do SROs have different training than other deputies?
They have additional training
Oh, additional.
as far as the SRO training.
They go through a course through the National Association of School Resource Officers. I believe the Colorado Association has additional training as well. And there's, as with any industry, there's a plethora, myriad of different trainings you can get, specialized trainings you
How
can
to
get
deal with
involved in.
teenagers.
When they're not yours.
Yeah.
Or when they are yours.
That's funny. I saw a talk where they explain young teenagers as like the temporal lobe on steroids.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think
That's
that's
the
a
truth.
great idea.
Yeah,
to
I
have
do.
it
I am wondering, is there anything special you'll do for recruitment of this position, given that there's open other positions?
So this is we're not going to hire this position off the street, someone with no experience, because we would never see them as an SRO, or we'd see them as an SRO in 2 years. So we would need someone that has I think it was 3 years of experience. So that's, going through the academy, going through a training program, and then 2 years or so on the road by themselves. So that sort of narrows the pool a little bit. We're going to have to do some pretty specialized recruiting efforts. And I'm working with Amy Schur in HR to sort of get ahead of that a little bit, so that if and when this becomes approved, we can really open that up pretty quickly.
And this will probably be not within our community, because otherwise they'd already be with you and create a shortage there.
Potentially, but one of the greatest things that we can do internally is recognize the strengths of people that currently work for us and give them opportunities for promotion that may not have existed before. So we're open to really anything, outside agencies, but we'd like to focus on rewarding those that have really done a great job internally as well.
Yeah, but then you just have to replace that person.
Correct.
And recruit
We
for
always have to
PD.
replace something.
Exactly.
It's a cycle. We're always
Sure.
looking for new deputies.
Well, I'm glad you're doing this. I certainly
Thanks,
have no
guys.
objection. Anybody else?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Michael.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
so
worry
much.
about the road safety. Speed safety, highway 82.
We'll be back with that.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank
Your
you.
department, I did notice that, I guess CDOT cleaned up Shale Bluffs.
Yeah,
in the last
yesterday.
24 hours.
Finally.
It was yesterday, yeah.
That was
Yeah, I
great.
saw it this morning. It
Yeah,
looked great.
Grateful for that. this morning.
For sure. Definitely.
Wait a minute, I was out there with a broom.
Well, you missed a few spots, but.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it looked great.
Thank you.
Hi,
Cheers.
Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, y'all. Board.
Y'all's okay.
Yeah.
I'm Ashley Pearl. I'm the Community Resiliency Manager, and we are asking for funding to be transferred from the ARPA budget, the American Rescue Plan Act budget, over into a specific fund to pay for the maintenance and equipment grant for child care providers. We talked about this a couple weeks ago at a work session, and the board gave approval, so this is kind of the formal way of doing that. So as a reminder, this is a program that will run from now. The first application would be due this Friday through August of next year, with 3 to 4 rounds of funding, where each licensed child care center in Pickens County would be eligible for up to $20,000 of a grant to work on maintenance and equipment needs. And since the board previously gave their, nod of approval, we've been meeting with all the different childcare centers, and as of today, I have $110,000 worth of grant requests just in this first round of all very eligible programs. So I think that shows us that there is definitely this need, and then I think it will spur other folks to think about what they need this summer and then apply for future rounds. So this amount up there includes the grants to individual childcare providers plus the administrative fee to Aspen Community Foundation for them to process the grants and do all the reporting and that sort of stuff.
Great. Questions, problems? Okay.
That's what I,
Okay,
thank you so
thank
much.
you.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
You do have a question?
Nope.
Okay, next we
Thank you,
have
thanks.
a request from procurement, and I believe Chris Davis should be on the line.
What is procurement?
And procurement is,
I know what the word means, but
right, for if you have a private company and you need to hire a service or buy goods, you can go to your cousin or your uncle or whoever you want to. But for government, we have an obligation for the citizens' tax dollars, that they're spent in a way that is open and transparent, that everyone can put in a bid for a contract, and that the process that we go through in determining who is awarded a contract is open, fair, transparent for all to see, and the best use of the taxpayer funds. So procurement manages our
all the RFPs.
all of the RFPs, the contracts.
And in addition, if there are contract disputes or challenges to those procurement processes, procurement will also be the initial touch point for dealing with those. So a lot of the contracts that are coming through, we're using standard language that was approved through the attorney's office, but all the scopes of work in those contracts and such are coming through procurement pursuant to these bid processes that they've run.
And so they need upgraded software.
They'll work with, well, I'll let Chris explain more, but they do work with all of the different county departments as a department is wanting a service and creating a scope of work that goes along with that, and things, helping out that department in developing that in a way that suits their best interests.
Okay.
So, Chris, I'll
Thank
let
you.
you jump in.
Thank you for that.
Okay, yeah, sure thing. Good afternoon, everybody. I heard Connie's kind of overview of procurement, and it was spot on. But up until this point, we've kind of just piecemealed a bunch of different resources. I believe we're using 10 plus, Word, Excel, PDF, BidNet, Google Docs, all of that. We're using a lot of different resources. So getting this software would kind of pull it all into one platform. So creating bid documents, soliciting, actually publishing RFPs, managing the scoring, issuing addendum or follow-up information for bid opportunities, and then also issuing the notices of award, and then carrying that information through to the contract, and then ongoing management of the contract, all in one platform. So it will be a lot easier for us to track the workload, be consistent with document delivery, and then also on the user side for staff, a lot easier to see where a contract is in the process, what kind of proposals have been received, manage the scorecard, and then also ongoing vendor management. And something that we don't really have right now is the vendor side, where they can actually do some self-service of going in and uploading their own documents, whether that be insurance, pay applications, asking questions, and then also user support. So they're not contacting us, they're actually contacting OpenGov. And OpenGov has been a partner with us for several different things, including asset management, some financial transparency platforms, I believe, primarily for the airport. But anyway, they've been a great partner, and we're pretty excited about the opportunity to bring them on. Haven't really looked at this in the past, so we didn't budget for it, so that's why we're coming before you today.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is it $46,000 every year?
That's correct, which is typical of the models of software today, where you don't buy a software, it's a subscription-based service that includes all of the support.
It's crazy. But I understand, but still. I mean, we've invested in a lot of computer programs, and some of them we haven't had great success with, and we're always told it's going to better the system, it's going to be more efficient. So maybe this is one that we can actually see the results of that.
Yeah,
Let's hope.
We're pretty optimistic about this opportunity because of prior experience with the same company. And last year, when we presented the budget, Liz came and showed the board what can be offered through the financial transparency software with the same company.
So how much does that cost us a year? If this is $46,000?
I know it's less. I don't have the dollar amount.
That would be
right
interesting
now.
to see how much we're paying cumulative for, per year. Just for future reference, maybe during budget.
Just with the analysis that they have at the bottom, regarding the various other communities that use this, maybe we can have similar stats at the end of the first year, or however long it takes, just to understand how it actually helps. It'd be useful to have that.
Definitely. Okay, I think it's good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks very much.
Okay, next, Jody is here for a request for an assets and housing specialist.
Full-time equivalent.
Another employee, Patty.
Getting slammed.
Hi, I'm Jody Smith. I'm the Director of Employee Housing and Asset Management. And I am here asking for a housing and asset specialist, full-time employee. In 2022, the county manager's office came to the board with a restructure of the whole upper management division. And they created an infrastructure team, which is led by Rich Engelhardt. And in that infrastructure team, we developed an employee housing and asset management division. There are others in there as well, but that structure was approved. During that budget presentation, it was noted that there would be a new position needed, and it was placed on pending status. It wasn't approved in any budget or anything. It was just kind of like, FYI, we're going to need this at some point. I didn't really even know what it was going to be. I wanted to take this first, period of time to find out what the new employee housing and asset management role was, what was really needed. Because during that budget restructure, they were talking about a manager, and I was like, I don't know that we need a manager, and let's find out what we really need. So I've spent the last several months in this department or division by myself. I do have a administrative specialist who works for Rich, and I get 20 hours of her time for entering budget into Munis and taking care of all the invoices. So I'm so grateful that I don't have to do that part. But so far, I've just kind of been doing this on my own. And I know I've written some stuff in here that you all have read, but it's really property management, all inclusive, right? Housing, rental units, helping with the purchase process of new employee housing units, doing the upkeep and maintaining and bringing on services to do those upgrades to make sure that all of our units are livable and comfortable for our employees. So there's Phillips Mobile Home Park. We manage that. We do have a property manager on site there. This person does plan to retire in the coming period of time. There's no date on that yet, but I know that he has mentioned it a few times. I'm also managing 18 rental units, which is from the homeowners association meetings and everything that has to do with those units, and then 11 county buildings as far as the leasing and management of assets. More of the envelope of the building, none of the operation. So that's kind of just having that balancing act of and the complexities of figuring out what we need. And I'm not sure that it's really sustainable for me to continue to be in more of an operational level and property management than the director, and moving more towards strategic planning, working with Ashley and GR in the development of housing and those kinds of things. And so we're asking for this specialist position who would focus on the housing operational duties, repair, maintenance, upgrades, move in, move out, those kinds of things, preparing things for the next unit. And this is the 18 housing units that we have. And in the last 3 years, we've spent an average of about $60,000 to $65,000 on outsourcing that. So I've been hiring a contractor to come in and do all that work to make that happen. With this request, we would be reducing that significantly, because we would have somebody that was a technician specialist that could actually do much of that. Maybe they wouldn't be able to do some of the plumbing repairs or something that requires an electrician, but that's kind of where I think we can save some money on that. And then, like I said, Phillips Mobile Home Park, if he retires, I think bringing on a staff member now and having that transition to train and understand all the complexities of the Phillips Mobile Home Park. There are rules, regulations, water quality testing, and dates that you have to meet for our ditch maintenance, the potable water, all of that stuff, which he does now. And so that would be a real benefit for when that happens. And then the last thing is the property management and county building properties. Of really looking at our gathering data and condition reports and the details that we need to better present to the board on what our capital replacement schedules are, to really be able to work on space planning, inspections, upgrades, and then managing some of those contractors. And one of the things that I find the most difficult in all the projects that I've done over the years, because I left facilities and moved to assets, is the warranty period. It's so hard in it's the last mile of that last year or 11 months to make sure that all of the warranty stuff is. And I would really lean on this person to work on that. The facility staff, they don't have the capacity to be a direct resource to assets, and they don't support our housing work. They've just got their own buildings to work on. And with this position, there could be an opportunity, because this position, they can't do the work 100% by themselves. They might need a facilities tech to come work with them. And they could also reciprocate and help facilities if they need an extra hand. So I think that it's still a good marriage, because it's all facilities and assets together, but we're kind of running in different tracks. So that's kind of the position that I'm asking for. And
well, I can tell you from looking at this, the position itself seems fine, but I have some questions about some of the other costs associated with it. A vehicle for $73,000. I've never had a $73,000 vehicle in my life. I imagine none of us have. What is that?
That is just a typical cost for a truck.
A small truck.
A small truck.
Electric, I hope.
We hope.
Really? That's a very expensive truck.
Well, that includes all of the
logo or whatever else is necessary in the truck, radio or
retrofitting it for the gas tank.
What?
I don't know if it must include the retrofitting so that the card reader does the gas. I don't know. It can't be that much, but But that's the number that Fleet gave us, was $77,000.
That's just a chip that's.
Okay, well, that's one that
73,000.
I'm concerned about. I think that's really high for a pickup truck. And then the benefits and health are over 16,000 for half a year on a $36,000 salary. I thought it was like 20%.
So our benefits, including retirement, are around 16%, but the health insurance is more. The health insurance can range anywhere from $12,000 a year to $27,000 a year, depending on whether it's employee only or employee plus family. And we use an average number of 19,000 as just an average
Really?
between
That's
the
what we
different.
pay for health insurance for each of our employees?
Yes. Yeah, the health insurance is quite expensive.
Wow.
That's
Okay,
why we've been focused on that so much in our
Yeah.
other efforts. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and the computer seems expensive to me. It just seems like all these auxiliary costs are like, the salary is like nothing compared to all the auxiliary costs.
Tools and uniforms.
I wish you guys would look at the truck again, because I look at trucks all the time because I'm looking for a new truck, and that just seems way over the top to me. I mean, anyway. Yeah, Patty?
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot more, I don't know how you're gonna get a guy who can be a handyman, who can collect data, do warranties. I mean, that the job description is pretty diverse for that position. And at the end of the day, Jody, what are you gonna do? Looks like we're covering all the job description, because I haven't seen your job description to be able to compare it with this job description. And I know that you need some help, but you got 20 hours with somebody helping her data, that'll stay, which I think is great. But now we're hiring somebody who's got to have a lot of skills, rather than just being able to do minor repairs.
Has to drive a truck.
Has to drive an expensive truck and wear a uniform and have tools and a computer. So I just think it's a very broad-based job description to try and find somebody who can do all of that administrative stuff along with just property management. So that's my concern.
Other questions or concerns?
Can we just give an overview of the, like, not the workflow, but the staff flow chart, work chart, position chart? Yeah, org chart.
So I think what Kelly's looking for is kind of the reporting relationships within infrastructure and kind of where you're fitting in.
Yes.
I mean, the family tree, kind of a.
Right.
Sorry, I got a call for
tomorrow
heritage. I got to
or something.
Step out.
So I don't have an org chart right here to show you. Rich presented a number of org charts back last fall when they were working on a restructure, and at that point in time, Jody was moved outside of facilities into assets, and GR was moved outside of public works into construction and engineering director, with both positions reporting to Rich. And Rich is the deputy county manager in charge of all of the infrastructure areas. And with one admin position supporting both construction and engineering and housing and assets. So on the org chart, it falls underneath Rich, Jody and GR's positions, with one admin support underneath that. And so then this new position ask would fall under Jody on the org chart. Facilities now is under Public Works, reporting to the Deputy Public Works Director. And that would be the facilities custodial and regular maintenance for the buildings.
And so that's going to be our internal staff. And so Jody in assets is doing a lot of the contract management and such on projects. For example, Jody, I believe the jail, you're overseeing that, as well as the housing maintenance and such. We saw this as an opportunity to try and offset some of those contracted costs and provide some consistency. And as we're bringing on more inventory, whether that be through some future transition in management of units at Phillips, addition of units at Phillips, and purchases, that we have somebody tracking those assets.
And why is this coming through now, or what has changed from?
It was identified as a need.
Status.
last fall when the initial restructure was presented by Rich. It was presented as a new position request in the 2023 budget process, but it was decided to put it in a pending category, basically put it on hold and wait and give, as Jody said, give some time to see what the actual need was rather than approving something right then and there when we weren't sure. So that's why there's a delay.
Yeah, the reorg, if you remember, was pretty new at that time and still in process of being implemented. And so as we looked at these positions, we felt like we needed to have some time for the reorg itself to settle down and understand whether we had identified the right needs. And in fact, Jody, I think, identified a different set of needs, and actually, I think, a little bit lower level position than we had originally anticipated.
And
So I hope that.
Again, why, what's the rush now as opposed to coming through with our formal budget process?
Going through the formal budget process. Yeah, it was more that we had, I believe, identified it. We have these needs outstanding right now. We could continue to contract those. We think that's a less efficient way to go, and we want to make sure we maximize crossover with Phillips. But it is something we could probably continue.
We could.
You are expecting about half of this cost to come to be covered by the contracting that we won't be doing?
Yeah.
Or up to half of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 30 grand or so or more. And the other thing I would just like to add is, so yes, I have been, for the last year, really working on, the capital projects, capital asset or management, right? And so the courthouse, we finally finished that. The jail will be finished by the end of next week. And we ended up doing that in 2 phases. I have the senior center under construction right now. We just put a new roof on South Side. I'm designing and planning for solar on 2 other buildings. It's just
Snowmass Village,
Snowmass Library planning and
substation.
design.
That's a lot.
Animal shelter.
It's just, I'm just not able. Why now? I'm not able to, I think, accomplish the job that I was hired for as an asset director, to work at a higher level. I'm still down on the ground level working. I mean, I'm cleaning out apartments, and I'm down doing the stuff that maybe might be better for somebody that isn't in my position.
That makes total sense.
And
to
I would
me.
love to be able to mentor them and show them the way. And
Well, you've got a lot on your plate. I get that.
it's great. I love it. Don't
So
get
I
me
just
wrong.
want to understand too, so regarding Phillips, then there would be like a different phase at Phillips for the residents. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a transition that would need to be managed? as well?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would just
I
ask that.
understand, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
I would just ask that you find a cheaper truck and put the money back in the budget if you don't spend it. I mean, a Ford Lightning electric truck right now is $65,000. That's like a pretty amazing truck, so just saying.
We'll definitely talk to Matt.
And it's
doesn't
electric.
have a decal
It's
on it.
all electric, so. Okay. thank
And I
you.
will tell you that I have taken on an electric car, and it's amazing. I did not think I would like it, and I love it.
Oh, that's
Don't
great.
let Matt hear you say
Which
that.
one?
Matt, the Volt.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a zippy car.
Yeah, they're
I'm afraid
fun.
I'm going to
They're
get a
actually
speeding
really
ticket.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so
if
I
there's no
agree.
further, shall we just move it along?
I'm hoping you'll be able to find the right candidate, because it does sound like a complex job, multifaceted, person that's going to have to be able to get down and do the hard stuff, but then also massage the various, social issues regarding working with the people. So it's going to be it may be hard to recruit this person.
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding.
Maybe the electric car will entice them to do it.
Electric truck or the
It's a truck.
$73,000 truck.
There are not that many trucks. There is a Ford electric truck that doesn't have four-wheel drive that is much cheaper.
That's the hybrid one, right? The
Yeah.
Maverick.
Yeah, It's a really cool truck, but doesn't have four-wheel drive.
But it might be heavy enough it wouldn't need four-wheel drive.
It's called not
Bit into
Maverick,
the
but
weeds, aren't
something with an M, anyway.
And we are working on the electrification project. So that's, that study's going to be done, and we'll be implementing that in 2024. So, yeah, sorry, I just had to get that in there.
Well, thank you, Jody, for everything you do.
Thank you.
And Board, we do have one other request that did not make it into this packet material, but I'd like to briefly mention it. And if the Board is favorable towards it, I can provide the write-up and include it with the second reading of the resolution. And that is at Elk Run. The county owns 2 employee housing units there, and they have special assessments that have come up. The special assessments for the 2 units total about $31,000.
Oh, my goodness.
And
Jody, thought maybe you were going to say 3,100.
No, 31,000 on
For
top
both,
of the regular.
not for each.
No, including both.
Yeah.
One was about 18 and one was about 13 or
And
something.
what are
The
the special
3-bedroom, one's a
assessments for?
2-bedroom, yeah.
And Jody was looking at these with Liz, and originally we had planned on just doing their installment plan, but the interest rate is pretty high on that. It's about 7%. And we would save somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 if we simply pay the assessments up front rather than drawing it out on their payment plan.
What's the assessment for?
It's concrete work and painting. They've really upgraded that whole villas area. It looks incredible, but it was a very large loan.
Is this in, where is this?
Elk Run.
Yeah, where's that?
The villas, it's in Basalt.
Those are
It's in the
owned
Pickens
units, or-
County portion, Basalt.
Oh,
off
yeah,
of-
okay, yeah, uh-huh.
Are they rental or ownership? Do our employees own them, or the people who live in
They're
I believe
renters.
these are rental units.
They're
yeah.
employee units.
Okay.
Their employee what?
Employee rental units.
Rental.
Mhm.
Okay, well, why don't you bring us back to us?
Okay. It won't be in tomorrow's reading. It wasn't
That's fine.
ready for that packet material, but I will include it for second reading.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you very much, Board.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
And
Can we
Connie,
just plow ahead till we're done, everyone?
yeah,
All right.
Connie, tomorrow include it
Yikes.
verbally, so it's part of their motion.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Plow ahead. Sure.
Okay, future agendas.
I actually don't have any future agenda items for you.
That's easy.
I do.
Next.
What do you have?
Let's see. Oh, John, or someone. I have a list. I go through these guys. I read.
know, I do too.
We're having a working lunch while we're touring the jail. So is it an eat and run?
Yeah, we're gonna have a lunch for you on the tour.
When is that?
On the 8th, on
Jail
the
tour.
20th, 6:20.
I'm sorry, did you ask what it was or when it was?
Both.
Oh, let me pull it up here.
How
Do you
do
have it
I
right in
not
front of
know
you there?
this?
We're touring the jail.
I haven't heard anything about this.
We're touring the jail from noon to 1:30, and it's a working lunch, which means we have to tour the jail and eat at the same time. I know we can multitask really well. I'm just,
Depends on where cell you want to be in.
We'll
lunch.
provide an opportunity for you to
okay.
sit. We'll work
And
through this logistics.
one other thing is, I might have to leave early that day because I've been invited to attend a meeting with the homeowners at Holland Hills about that pond. They have an issue with the gentleman building the pond up above the homes, and I've been in talking with staff about it. So, but I haven't made that decision. I just want to give the boards a heads up. And on the 21st, our 28th, our regular meeting is a really long agenda, and we have the airport forecast, the aviation forecast scheduled that day, which could take a while. I just wanted staff to give the 2 land use items, applicants, 3 Trees Appeal and Turnabout Ranch a heads up that it could be a long meeting, and if they wanted to hang out with us for the day, or if they wanted to change the time. So.
Yeah, we can do that, and we are doing the work session the day before to hopefully,
On the aviation, yeah, but I'm talking public
27th.
comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like us to add that that's a public hearing, so it's very clear under that.
Yeah,
item.
for the aviation forecast, yeah. So I just
You just
wanted,
told
if we
me.
could have staff
Yeah, but it's
just
only
let the
listed as
applicants
a
know,
one-
turnabout in 3 Trees Appeal.
It's just
that it
listed as
could be a
individual
really long day.
consideration, one read, but it doesn't say that it's a public hearing, and it will be.
Mine does.
Mine doesn't.
Mine
And then I
says,
have
oh,
one
no,
more.
you're right. It says for public hearing on July 12th. You're right.
I have one more
you.
quick one. On July 18th, we have a joint meeting with the city of Aspen from 10 in the morning till 4. What are we talking about?
That is, we're doing a housing
Oh, okay.
summit. It's kind of a retreat format for both bodies.
It's a lot of time.
On July 18th.
It's on July 18th, yeah.
And then we have an APSHA retreat the 19th. We gotta talk about
Good, you guys are gonna be.
Reverse those.
Are we talking anything new about housing, or are we going back for 40 years of housing?
Well,
It's
we're
a
working
long
on
day.
that agenda. Yep.
It's a long day.
Also, it has me down for not attending on July 11th, but I'm not going to Boston.
No, we're bummed that you can't go on your trip.
So I probably will be attending unless I'm in surgery. Just leave it the way it is for now. Okay. Any more on future
I'm
agendas?
good.
Okay, so open discussion. I want to start it with warning everybody in Pitkin County that the forecast for tonight in Aspen is 33 degrees.
Oh, got my frost
So
cloth
you
out.
should bring your plants in, cover your tomatoes, whatever it takes.
Isn't it summer?
The summer is the pits.
No, it's not summer. It's still spring. Haven't you noticed? It's 39 down valley, so I'm going to risk it. But 33 in Aspen, just a warning to everybody.
There's a place in Utah with 4 inches of snow
Oh, no kidding.
this morning, so that's probably headed this way.
Yeah.
We
Maybe
drove
I'll have
through a
to bring
snowstorm
things. I
yesterday
don't know.
coming here.
I've definitely been in the high country on June 21st and had 6 inches of snow fall on my tent.
Going under
But anyway,
36.
so that's tonight.
Okay. I have a couple really quick.
Okay?
Kelly, I wanted you to know that Northwest COG approved using their funding opportunities for the Wild and Scenic, and they're waiving their administrative fee.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We don't know how much, but they agreed to waive it because it's also kind of an issue with QQ, so it's kind of supported through Northwest COG.
Thank you.
So, yes, I wanted you to know.
We need to have that come before us soon.
Yeah, so I wanted you to know that. The other thing, I want the board to know that I think I have resolved the issue with the plaque at Veterans Park.
Oh, good.
We are probably going to use, I'm hoping, I've got approval from Dennis Hanley and from the veterans, to use a quote from President Lincoln's second inaugural speech. And it's a very simple quote, and I thought I had printed it out, but I'll let the board know what didn't print out on this, what the quote is. And then I'm working with Rich Engelhardt to figure out how to get the plaque removed, how to have a new plaque made, and how to have it installed. So,
I am very impressed.
That's
And
great,
I
yeah.
think that is meaningful.
Yeah, I like it too. Very happy
Small,
about that.
but meaningful.
yeah.
Thank you.
And
Probably not that small.
Dennis is very happy.
Do you have the quotation?
No, I don't have it with me, but I
Next
have
thing
it,
we'll
I
be
have it on my
changing the name of
computer.
the county.
Are we going to get a chance to see the quotation?
Yeah, I'll bring it in tomorrow. I thought I printed
I
it
would
out,
do
but it's
that.
not
I'd
on
do
this.
that,
And I just want to note, this was a lot of movement on the
You
part
know
of
the county
veterans,
stuff.
because this is not a new conversation. This is a
right.
conversation that's been going on for years. So Patty, thanks for
Yes,
taking
you
that
guys
on.
decide.
And hopefully it's
somebody's
okay
like,
with the board.
Why are you taking it? I'm like, because I told the board I would.
For the same reason that you planted the planters. Thank you
Yes,
for
I
that.
did that for you for your birthday, by the way. And then,
We have to bring them all in tonight, though.
They're out close enough
I'll
to the
cover them.
building.
I'll bring my frost cloths down in my old sheets or
Going to
something.
136.
The other thing is, I don't know if I think maybe we all got a email with Jenna Griswold, who's going to be in town.
Yeah,
Tomorrow,
Oh,
So-
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, is it tomorrow?
yeah.
right when we're meeting, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were gonna maybe see if she could come. I sent something back to Ethan saying maybe she could come at noon.
Yeah, I
give
didn't
her
see
3
anything
minutes.
back.
Well, but just so we could say hello at least. Do we wanna extend that?
You could at least come see Ingrid.
Ingrid is actually going to be
Ingrid's
out,
catching a plane
so-
tonight.
She's
at
not
6.
here? Oh, my.
Yeah.
John, do you have Ethan? Can you send him back something just off?
Let me just see if I've...
I have it right here. You could send him back something, just say if she wanted to come at noon. I don't know if she's available, but I thought it would be nice just to offer that to her.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, guys.
Patty, this is, Ginny connected with Dee Weiser about the ballot initiative language related to a RET fee. And apparently it was approved by the Supreme Court to go for signature collection, but they've opted not to do that this year. So I did want to share the status of that.
Thank you, and I wanted to apologize to the board because I was gearing up to take this thing, but because of family health issues, I've been a little diverted.
Well, it's
There's
probably
always
not a
next year.
good year to do taxes for
I know, but I was
any
gonna
reason, but-
try and get it moving, so.
No, I think that's good though. I think that's a really
Yeah,
good
that's great news, Kelly.
indication
Thank
that,
you.
that it was the language is approved. And then I guess I have a question for Patty and Greg on the Board of Health. I was approached by came up in conversation with some parents about the wait till 8th social media pledge that the schools have circulated related to not buying your kid a phone till they're 14. And I
What does that have
wasn't
to do with
sure.
8? Why is it wait till 8?
Wait till 8th.
Great.
8th grade.
Like, what?
And they had
But we're not gonna
requested
go until you're
if
14.
the county would
You have
pass
to
a
wait.
resolution in support or consider something, and I said, well, I think that it makes more sense to check in with public health
Senator
about
Jordana, right?
that kind of conversation, so I wanted to see if that's come up or on your radar.
It's not, but I'm looking
all.
right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on anything that's come through to me, but maybe Greg knows more as chair.
No, I don't, but we
But
can ask
that's
about it.
worthy of a discussion, I think.
And that's all I had, thank you.
I want to catch you up. I had a visit to Redstone on Friday and spent about an hour with Bill Argyros along the river there. And a couple of things. The flooding is, we've had incredibly lucky weather in regards to flooding in Redstone because the nights have been very cold up there. They've been in the 30s and it's really slowed down runoff. So the slowdown in the runoff has stretched out runoff rather than flooding Redstone. The lowest, there's 2 low spots. One is at the end of the levee that Picken County built 15 years ago, just beyond the Propaganda Pie. You can really see the levee at Propaganda Pie. You can see all the rocks and stuff.
Yep.
But in the park, it looks more like a little berm. But anyway, just downstream from that is a very low spot. And so if the river goes up another foot from Friday, I don't know where it is today, it probably would run into there, which would mean that it would probably have standing water in some people's yards and in their crawl spaces, but certainly not life-threatening and not property devaluating. And then down by the fire station, you can see from the growth along the river there that there's always sub-irrigation going on there right next to the river. It's all shrubs and little aspens and willows and stuff. So it's always getting water there. And that will probably flood a little bit as well. I don't know if it'll actually go into the parking lot, but unless we have a series of hot days, which are not forecasted, we're probably going to skirt flooding in Redstone this year, at least serious flooding.
great.
Some people's basements may be affected, but it certainly wouldn't be the first year. And then while I was there, I also happened to see the work that was done with sandbags. So there's still a huge pile of sand as tall as this room, and hundreds of sandbags on pallets ready for people to take and do something with. So obviously people there aren't that concerned about it. And
I know, I was up there the other day and saw those, and I'm like, how many bags did we have to start with? Because there's a lot of them left.
It's quite a lot. And so I don't know how much of that was Public Works and how much of it was individual volunteers or the Carbondale Fire Department. But anyway, there are a lot of sandbags ready up there. And I am looking into who's going to be there to pick up the pallets with heavy equipment. I think I know who it is, and I'm going to call him. So then I also visited Redstone Ranch Acres that we've talked about several times and saw the bridge where Bill explained to me a kid was leaning on the railing of the bridge looking down into the creek, and the whole railing gave way. Unfortunately, somebody grabbed the kid. And so there is no railing on the bridge at all on Pine Creek, and the creek is ripping right now. So I know that Bill's trying to be in touch with Brian, and I have too. Brian's away right now, but so I think there's some issues with the abutments, that there isn't much abutment there to tie a railing to make it a safe railing. So just something that's probably going to come before us in some way, because I don't know if they have enough money from their tax, what do you call it, levy, income, whatever,
The
to
property
cover
law.
it. But anyway, I did see the bridge. In fact, we went over it. It's a little bit touch and go. But anyway, so that's my report from Redstone.
Thank you.
I drove over Thompson Creek at Sunfire Ranch. no rail on that bridge. And I was like keeping my car, I was doing like at the airport, putting my nose on the center line.
That bridge is twice as wide as Klein
I
Creek.
know, God.
Oh my God, it's twice as wide.
And the
I've been
water was just,
Yeah, I've been over that bridge many, many times
Whoa.
and in a tractor, so. Yeah, so all the creeks are ripping. It's awesome. It's great ride here. Anything else?
I had a meeting yesterday with some core board members and representatives from the Colorado Energy Office who were coming up to do a tour. They're touring the whole state to look at what's happening with housing, energy efficiency measures. And so they got a chance to show off Basalt Vista and to look at some of the other affordable housing projects, to talk about RAFTA's projects, just to see what's happening in the valley. And I think they were impressed and they were enthusiastic to learn. We talked about things like the promotion of housing with the mobile home or modular home builders, manufactured home builders, and how energy standards for manufactured homes. For instance, the company in Buena Vista that's come online, they plan to build thousands of manufactured homes, but they don't necessarily have to meet state or energy codes that would allow them to place one in our valley. And we talked about, what will it take to get them to go above the HUD standard, which is much lower than the state standard for housing would be. But anyway, it was fun to meet them, and they were very enthusiastic about coming up here. We'll probably get them back again.
Great. Who did you meet with?
You were going to ask me names, right?
Yep.
There's a woman named Amy. There's a guy
Sam
named
and
Lauren.
Joe and
Adam,
Dallas.
Amy, and Lauren were the three people. So they're just doing a road trip.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were, and I don't know if they are, but there was some
I met with the
energy
State
office
Department
folks
back
involved with the whole
yesterday,
land
Steve.
use.
Any other open discussion?
They weren't part. We talked about that,
Yeah.
and they didn't know much about it, but they were intrigued to hear that we were pretty upset because they hadn't heard that. So I gave them an earful.
Okay, Steve?
So there is an open position at the Northwest Colorado Council of Governments for the mobility manager who coordinates rides for Medicaid and veterans going to medical appointments. And John Stabney has been filling that position, like doing moonlighting on that while doing his director of Northwest COG. There is also a staffing shortage at the Intermountain TPR, which Brian Pettit is he's the
Brian and I are the reps.
the chairman or something of that. So anyhow, we're having a negotiation to try to have the CDOT money for hiring the mobility manager and also getting additional administrative help for Intermountain TPR to have one position to cover both of those. And the view is that it would be much better coordination amongst all of the transit systems in the Northwest COG area, which there are quite a few of them. RAFTA being one of them, but like every valley in Winter Park and Summit Stage and the Eagle County Transit, which has passed their tax question to create their transit authority, to coordinate the activities of all of them in terms of getting a unified approach to going to the TPR funding to have it make more sense for transit for all the citizens, including disabled and veterans and senior citizens and Medicaid patients. So that's an effort that's going underway, and I'll keep you up to date on that as it progresses.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to Redstone STRs. I think Kara is going to introduce this for us. John, where are we meeting on Thursday? I knew I was going to forget the name. Oh, yeah. Now I've got my place to put it.
I'm gonna sit.
Well, more than Cara.
Getting all teams today.
Before you start, can I throw in one more thing I just remembered from that I wanted to tell for open discussion?
Mike?
Just for open discussion, one last thing while we're on the topic. The groundbreaking ceremony for the raft at 27th Street Bridge is on Friday, June 16th at 10 a.m. At 27th Street, Shoshana Liu, the director of CDOT, will be there. And
The
probably some
27th
other
Street underpass.
big shots also. Yeah, underpass.
There will be
Pedestrian
an underpass.
underpasses.
Yeah, so we're going to celebrate them cutting the cable.
They've already done that. So
There was not one person there when I went by that day. There wasn't one person on that whole construction site.
they'd all run away.
Either that or they
So
were-
anyway, that's just so if anybody wants to go, Director Liu will be in the vicinity. I'm
When is it?
tempted to run down there. 10 a.m. on
Friday.
Friday, the 16th. Thank you. Sorry, Kara.
This Friday.
No problem. Good afternoon. We have Jenna and Suzanne and Kara here. We wanted to come back, and the board had requested to come back to discuss the Redstone follow-up from the Redstone short-term rental meeting that you all had a couple.
In May.
Thank you.
May 18th.
Thank you. May 18th. And so Jenna is here to give, we just had a couple of slides just to share some updates and some proposed recommendations from the staff perspective, and then really trying to get some board direction on moving forward with those recommendations, and any code amendment changes as it relates to Redstone Village Commercial District and within or outside of the annual review process.
Well, I can't get my slide up here. I thought we could just connect.
I just have
Student
a
initiative column.
procedural question. I know that we wanted to get this on an agenda, but some of these items need their own time, not open discussion, because they're pretty intense presentations in some cases. So I just would think that would be more appropriate for us to notice them as.
You're
work
kidding.
session
You know how hard it was to get this on anywhere?
I know, but it's also not a 5-minute, the open discussion was set up for quickies. And this is.
It's
but I
supposed to
just-
be about a
Food for thought.
15-minute discussion.
That's 10 minutes over the 5-minute limit. You're in big trouble, Francie.
It's on the schedule for that long, so suck
Well,
it
but
up.
just so you know.
Yeah.
That's, I just want to say that's how we initiated open discussion time, so just.
Duly heard.
Yeah.
Go on.
We'll just walk through it. So, just teeing it up for Jenna is, I think throughout the outreach process, and I think what we heard at the BOCC meeting in Redstone is really looking at the village commercial and any short-term rental regulations as it applies to the village commercial area. Anything for village residential or the R30 is still is going to stay within the normal short-term rental licensing and regulations program. So what we're here today is just to share what we think we heard about village commercial, trying to see if that is what the board wants and getting direction to move forward with any code amendments.
So, as you know, this went into adoption June 20th, which is 3 days away. So one question is, do we want to do any changes prior to the annual review? And if those changes are to be made, the two that we heard through the outreach and surveys, et cetera, we're changing the 4-night minimum to possibly 3 or 2, and then changing the maximum number of nights from 120 to possibly 180. And that's only in village, village commercial.
I didn't hear 180. Where'd you get that
I think
number?
that was just, these are just proposed. That was just someone suggested 108, moving it from 120 to 180, or no restrictions at all.
That's what I heard at the meeting.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I did hear someone say, no one comes during these 6 months, so 180 should cover your year.
That's
Maybe that was
where we got the.
afterwards, someone
Thank
came
you.
up to a handful of
I
us.
thought one of the things I heard was that we need people to come in the winter. We have businesses here and we want people in the town, and so if we have 120, that's burned up in summer and we don't have anything left for winter, so.
I think the issue is all these things were said
Yeah.
at the meeting. There may not be a lot of agreement.
I also heard that nobody comes in the winter anyway, so.
But if they
Dead
did,
stone.
then it
Yeah.
Be nice.
It depends on
So
that.
currently,
Right.
there's 3 issued short-term rental license in VC, and there's 4 issued in VR, and there's 1 more in progress for VC. So we're talking about a total of 4 licensed currently. And again, they're on a rolling basis, so they're good for an annual year. We have 1 that was submitted July 15th, so they will be coming up on their annual, renewal at the time. So just to keep that in
So
mind.
there's still a total of 7?
It says 7 with 1 in progress, so a
In
total
all
of
of
8.
Redstone,
Yeah, and all.
Mm-hmm.
In all of Redstone?
All of
So,
Redstone.
Total of 8?
not 30.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 in village commercial and 1 pending, so.
In village commercial?
What we're here to try and have the board give direction is related to village commercial, and specifically in that anything related to village residential in R30 is not part of the discussion for today.
I think I can support changes to village commercial. I think we heard that nothing jumps out at me that was, don't do it. Absolutely not. I think the residential is more concerning.
So the village residential part would follow the same as the rest of the county then?
For now.
And to me, that's what I was hearing too from the majority of the people there. I think they would like that, aside from maybe the
minimum.
4 people who have the STRs in the residential might not be happy with it. But I think the rest of the community probably would be happy with having the village commercial being able to operate longer with, better restrictions for them.
Or
Sounds
reduced.
reasonable to me, and I think we should try that and see how it works.
I'd like to try unrestricted in the commercial, because it is commercial. And even from the 2 women who first brought this to us in Redstone, I didn't hear any objection to changing the commercial zone, which I thought I would hear, but I didn't. And so that would be my preference, would be to have 2 days and no restrictions on number of days.
So 2-night minimum.
Yeah.
No restrictions on max.
That would be my preference.
Okay.
Kelly?
I think we're going to be all over the map on this, because I would rather just see this come back at one time where we deal with it, because I also sort of feel like some of the trade-off from people was get it out of village residential, but it's okay in village commercial, and so I'm not sure we're giving like full shake to that balance of that by making this immediate change without, I think, a little more deliberation on it, and this feels rushed.
Greg?
I'm vacillating. I hear what everybody said, and I've agreed with everyone.
I hate it when you say that.
You do remember how these initial conversations went, right?
Have some more gummies.
I know, it's like,
That's not even possible
have
to
some more,
agree
have
with
some more
everyone.
Zyrtec or whatever that stuff is, right? I'd be willing to try something. I'm more comfortable with the commercial relaxing, and I'd be willing to try it. We've been going through this. I appreciate what you said about feeling rushed, and perhaps we're hastily making a decision today, which might, deserve more time.
We're just giving direction to staff.
Right, I know.
We're not-
I'm just,
yeah,
I'm,
okay.
I'm trying to figure out, how to satisfy Kelly's concerns, because I feel that same sentiment. If that helps.
That didn't help at all.
Oh, yeah, it was immensely
But I
helpful.
totally agree with you, but it didn't.
Carry
help.
on.
So this will come back to us as a resolution to amend the STR thing, in which case then we will have a more robust discussion where we have the
Isn't it successful?
written thing in front of us and can dig in a little deeper if we need to at that time.
Right, it will butt up right next to the annual review. I mean, by the time we go through the amendment and the changes and the timeline of that, it'll be time to review the entire ordinance and the rest of the county.
Yeah, so what's the process?
Yep, a timeout. I'm not sure I'm hearing clear direction from the board. Before we march off, and, I think I've heard 3 maybe 4 different
I think 5
positions.
different.
And potentially 5 different positions of the board. And so I don't, unless you all took direction out of what was just said, I think maybe we either need to come back with a more robust discussion during annual review, or maybe hone in on direction a little bit more. We felt like if there was some clearer direction that maybe could emerge from the board following the Redstone discussion, that we could take that and start working on it and bringing it back. But
Here's what I heard. Let me review what I heard. I heard Patty say she's open to relaxing restrictions in commercial, and I heard Kelly say she thinks we need more time to talk about this. I heard Greg say he's open to relaxing restrictions in commercial and trying it out, and I heard Steve say he thinks we should relieve restrictions in commercial, and I think we should.
But you said no restrictions. I'm not saying no restrictions in commercial. I'm saying relax them to maybe the 180 days and the 2-night minimum. But in what Kelly said, what staff just said, with the annual review coming up in a month.
No, it's not. It's coming up in September.
September.
That's
I thought you
a
said
lot
July
of days
15th.
for people who are trying to rent their houses.
We passed it in June, but it wasn't effective until September. So if we want a full year of data,
I thought
it
for some
would be
reason July
September.
15th, I heard you say.
That was the first application we had in Redstone, so their license is up for renewal soon.
So are we going to be making any impact at all on Redstone summer, or are we just trying to tee this up for September?
I think the conversation we had had is if there was clear consensus and direction from the board to act right away, then we potentially could move something forward. I think what I'm hearing is
Well, let's
that
go back.
might
Let's
not.
do one more round. Hold on.
Okay.
Because I don't know about opening it up entirely, but Francie might back away from that a little bit just to get us through the summer, and then she'd be in alignment with 3 of us,
Yeah.
and
4
then
of us.
maybe Kelly would, we could spend the rest of the summer sorting it out before the annual review.
We're not passing.
So I think
it
we
now.
can get to consensus today.
So what I think I just heard then is, the 2 areas that the board would see a relaxation is increasing the maximum days to 180 and reducing the minimum night stay to 2 in the commercial.
I don't like 180. I think it's another random number, like 120 was random, not based on any facts or anything that we heard from the people in Redstone. I would rather see it be more than 180. I just think that's our throwing out a number.
But this is based on some compromise from a person who frankly didn't really care for STRs at all.
That's true.
So I do think some of that random is reflective of 2
Unrestricted
years of negotiated conversation among all of us.
Unrestricted is random too.
I think the 180 came from the bulk of their visitors was summer months, or the bulk of the business, and that's where that number
I did
came
not
from.
hear it that way. I'm sorry. I was there also. I didn't hear it that way. I just didn't. I didn't
Many
hear the bulk
times
of the
they
business
said that
people say
it's
180. But I mean, I'm going to obviously have to compromise here. But that's not what I heard.
Okay.
So how are you compromising?
Winter
I
was slower
remember
than summer.
what I heard was they have the
I gotta go.
summer season, but then they also have some business at Thanksgiving and at
You have to
Christmas.
vote with us before.
And the STRs in the commercial area could choose to shorten their summer season a little bit in order to have business at Thanksgiving and Christmas when they can be filled up. They don't have to do it all during the summertime.
I just had to laugh because we could roll it over and do an aggregate into next year. If you didn't use your 120 days, you get credit for them in the next. I'm just kidding.
I think we have 4 people. I don't think we're going to get Kelly today. But I think we have
But
4
she's
people
leaving.
who would like you to draw up something that shows a relaxing of the restrictions in the commercial zone. So we just need to come up with the right number of days, I think. Is that the way you see it, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
The process. 1 read, public hearing.
Ordinance, 2 readings.
Ordinance 2 readings, yeah.
One of those is a public hearing.
Are we doing it in here? Are we doing it in Redstone? Are
Why,
we doing it at
why
Francie's
would
house?
we limit in the commercial area? The other things there aren't limited. Why, the other places don't have to shut down and stuff in the
But they do
commercial
shut
zone.
down.
What?
They do shut down in the
That's
winter.
exactly right. We're trying to help them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to help
I
them.
think the other component that we heard and are trying to balance is the other aspects about what lodges and bed and breakfasts and that commercial zoning actually goes through versus the short-term rental piece of it, right? So you have a differentiation of your tax rate. You have a differentiation of what it took to go through from community development and actually getting the approval of that lodging and of that hotel. And so there's some acknowledgement that there is still something different that short-term rentals provide a lodging for Redstone, but it is also still something different, and there's an inherent inequity between what they have to contribute and tax rates. And so that is why that's what staff is trying to prepare, is also balancing those
I
differentiations.
definitely
between
hear
the two.
that. But just to remind us that both the motel and the B&B close down all winter and they go south. So that leaves no lodging in Redstone, except for the inn. And the inn is not opposed to STR. So I agree, those other issues are definitely out there. And something that we need to look at in general in terms of hotels and motels and stuff versus, I think it's the only motel left in the world is up in Redstone, but anyway, motels and hotels have different requirements.
Well, just for staff direction then, because you're not making a decision here, right? This is just going to be how we draft up
Right.
what's going to be
Correct.
considered by the board, and you're going to have an opportunity to debate that again. So I want to be clear, we drafting it, I think, Francie, you're recommending no limitation on the days.
On the number of nights.
And I think
But the 2 days, you have to do 2 days, so.
and I wonder if we can just do a check-in around and then we can take direction.
Just out of curiosity, I would like to know what the city of Aspen does with their STRs that are sort of in the commercial area of downtown.
I think the city of Aspen would like to know that too.
No, they have very clear guidelines depending on what zone the building is in. So they have a lodging zone, and I believe that's unlimited. And then they have some residential zone that is.
But if we could have that at the
places where
same
it's
time
banned
we're looking
entirely.
at the ordinance, the draft
We-
of the
we can bring
ordinance.
I don't need that. I'm
That
gonna
could be
do it.
helpful.
Yeah, I
Not
don't
Redstone.
think we know it off the top of our head. I think you're right that it's unrestricted, but we can bring that.
That's what I
up.
believe
Yeah.
too, so
Okay, I'm
we might want
freezing.
to make them more similar than less similar with.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my long underwear definitely tomorrow and tonight.
Bring it back to us unrestricted, and if we have to change it, then we will. Because I don't think Kelly's gonna buy into unrestricted, and I don't know whether everybody else will. but-
Unrestricted?
And we'll see if it matches Aspen, and we can have the discussion about specifically the number
go
of
the other
days, but
way.
at least it gets it rolling.
Should be tighter coming back to us so we can loosen it up, right? So that-
Well, that's the direction we're asking for from the board. right
I'm
now.
saying bring it back with 2 nights, 180 days. If we decide to do unrestricted, we can do so at the time. But it's my understanding with anything that comes before it, it's better to be.
You
on
always
the-
say that. I'm not sure I buy that, but.
No, because sometimes it calls for another hearing if we go in that direction, right?
Greg?
We can't be more restricted, we can be less.
Can't drill down that far right now.
Oh, my God.
The land use process.
I thought we already
And again, this
resolved
won't be a land
I'd
use
moved
process.
on.
Okay, let's compromise. Let's bring it back
code,
at
but that's
210.
illegal. That's a statute.
Don't tell them that.
Just bring it back.
Bring it back.
Hey, may
in
I
line.
ask, can we find something to bring back that is not unrestricted and is more than 180, and staff has the flexibility to find a sweet spot to bring back
That sounds
to you?
perfect.
But she wants rationale behind the numbers.
We'll bring back some rationale.
Also, people have different learning styles, and I need to hear things and read them to fully understand them. So having a written ordinance to look at is something
That'll come
I
back
need
to us in
before
an
I can-
in an ordinance?
Yeah.
It'll come back to us in a written ordinance.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
inordinate.
I don't have any further open discussion.
Good.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for your
Tomorrow we
patience.
start at noon, right?
Glad you've got clarity on
Tomorrow
all
we
this.
do start at noon.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Yes, we're adjourning, and Dora.
I got a
Thank
call
you.
from Harry.